Today, friends, I want to talk a little bit about Bilderberg because starting from tomorrow, from the 9th to the 12th of June, is Bilderberg 2016. And this year, the shadowy event will be held in Dresden, Germany. Now this year, hot on their secretive agenda will obviously be the EU referendum and what possibly they can do or are already doing to secure an in-vote. Now, if you don't know, Bilderberg met for the first time in 1954 and have met annually ever since. Under the guidance of the Dutch royal crown and the Rockefeller family, the most important people in the world met to discuss world issues off the record and away from the eyes of the media. All the big names attend: presidents, prime ministers, state secretaries, bankers, Microsoft, Google, military leaders, the International Monetary Fund, the EU, NATO, the UN, just to name but a few. And of course it was Herman Van Rompuy, the first president of the European Council, who attended a Bilderberg session to audition for the job. That's right, friends, he was not elected, but he was chosen in a secret meeting. Now, back in June 2013, Bilderberg was being held in the UK in Watford, and so I took myself up there to see what was going on. Now, the alternative media's relentless expose of these secretive meetings meant it couldn't be hidden any longer, so Bilderberg was forced to go public, or should I say, to make it look like they were going public, and to launch into some kind of PR strategy to deal with it. Now, I stood in between BBC and, from memory, I think it was the Associated Press, as delegates arrived in expensive cars amid the heckling of waiting protesters. It was a really interesting day. Predictably, the mainstream's take on the group was completely at odds with documented evidence. The reporting served only to stifle the growing awareness to the activities of this shadowy group. Those suggesting Bilderberg was anything other than the established version were treated in the usual manner and derided as conspiracy theorists. In fact, I was mocked by journalists simply just for being there. Later, I overheard a news group talking about how their supervisor had told them they would have access to the delegates at the hotel entrance. Now, if they had known anything about Bilderberg, they would have known that this could never happen. I even corrected some journalists on the information they had. It was so interesting to learn firsthand how disconnected from true journalism the mainstream press actually are. And to further illustrate how the mainstream media lie, the whole area was teeming with police and security. The public path outside had been closed, roads were closed, police helicopters were clearly overhead, and a vehicle carrying police horses passed by on the road outside. The next day, I read on one mainstream site how there was minimal security there, totally underplaying the event. Now, the reason the group has been so secretive over the years is clear, according to investigative journalist Daniel Estelin, author of the Bilderberg Group, who managed to get vital information from those meetings and reveals the disturbing aims of this shadowy elite. Now, Estelin documents that the Bilderberg Group wants to create one international identity by destroying the national sovereignty of nations through subversion. And friends, we can see this happening, can't we, today through the EU. The EU is a perfect example of this. Estelin goes on to say that they want to control people through the following: by creating a zero growth society. Prosperity means progress, and progress makes it difficult to enslave humanity. To artificially manufacture crisis for the purpose of confusing and demoralizing humanity, making people unable to decide their own futures. They want to control people through global control of all education. Eliminating the true past allows for the globalist dream to be realised. They want to further empower the United Nations. They also want the establishment of an American Union, much like the European Union, through the Western trading bloc and its expansion. They also want the development of NATO into the world's UN army. They also want the transformation of the International Court of Justice into the sole global legal system. Now, it was Bilderberg who was behind the formation of the European Union and the creation of the single currency according to leaked papers. Now, just to give an example, under the heading of one of these leaked papers, under European Unity, the paper reads, "It might be better to proceed through the development of a common market by treaty rather than by the creation of new high authorities." And then in another place it said, "It was generally recognised that it is our common responsibility to arrive in the shortest possible time at the highest degree of integration, beginning with a common European market." Now, just 2 years later, of course, in 1957, the European Economic Community was created with the Treaty of Rome. Now, concerning the euro currency, the paper said a European speaker expressed concern about the need to achieve a common currency and indicated that, in his view, this necessarily implied the creation of a central political authority. Also, the Telegraph in the year 2000 reported on the Bilderberg connection. The documents, it said, showed that America was working aggressively behind the scenes to push Britain into a European state and gave instructions for a campaign to promote a fully fledged European Parliament. Now, we can only wonder, friends, what on earth they'll be talking about this year, but we can be sure Brexit will be on the top of their agenda, and we can be sure they'll be doing everything in their power to keep Britain in. I mean, friends, if there is a Brexit, it will start a domino effect across the continent. Other nations will see the scaremongering was merely empty threats and see the UK surviving perfectly well outside. And this, friends, would spell disaster for the advancement of globalisation. We will be seeing referendums happen all over Europe. We certainly are living in very interesting and unexpected times.